before the Walt Disney Company can start worrying about honorary Oscars, they probably need to start worrying about their own walkways and whether or not people can actually ply them without being, horribly injured. So large sections of that darn World Celebration in-ground lighting have now been deemed a tripping hazard in Epcot, and the area is roped off. Large portion of those garden central planters is roped off, according to Blog Mickey, an action that typically indicates there is a tripping hazard. As it turns out, much of the in-ground lighting has popped up as mortar begins to deteriorate about a year and a half after it opened to guests. So as you can see in the photos here, a significant portion of the central planter in-ground lighting has been roped off, and while it is not uncommon to see small sections roped off for guest safety, this is the largest closed section that Blog Mickey has seen since World Celebration Gardens opened. So let's take a look. There we see it all roped off there so that people can't trip on it and then sue Disney. Hopefully they're not Disney Plus subscribers. And let's see if they can get a little closer into the action here. Yeah, there's that wonderful planter, which is the reason why we don't have a jumping fountain anymore. Yep, there you see that right there, popping up right there, popping up right there. Yep, that is a tripping hazard waiting to happen. That is a broken front tooth. That is a broken nose. That is, that is skinned knees.
It's really bad. If you think of all the drunk adults that have that stay in this part of the park, then that's a lawsuit right there.
Well, that's a really good point, Jonas, because, they want this to be the park of alcohol. They want this to be the park of adult, frivolity. And people are going to be stumbling about. They're going to trip over this. And then Disney's going to have the emergency room over in Celebration, which actually is quite nice if you've ever been there, as far as emergency rooms go. That's where they send you if you get hurt in the park. They ship you off to Celebration emergency room.
They don't best emergency rooms in America.
As far as emergency, it's the Walt Disney World of emergency rooms. Go ahead, Vash.
I mean, there's a new bar here, GU82, just 100 feet to the south of where this is. That's not going to be that great. And I love this commentary by Save the Magic right here. I can go ahead and share my screen for just a second. Save the Magic on Twitter says Disney poured billions into this Epcot refresh and ended up with a tripping hazard where a majestic fountain once stood. They could fix it if they'd stop wasting money bulldozing rivers of America. Tear it out, restore the fountain, admit it failed. It's embarrassing. How many times have we covered this just eyesore in the form of this lighting package that doesn't work properly? You can see right here, I think this was footage taken in December, when around the time that they tried to fix the first time, if I'm not mistaken, and now it's just deteriorated to the point where it's now this new fix, I don't even know what fix we're on anymore, is now popping up off of the ground and becoming a tripping hazard, as you guys have brilliantly pointed out. It's wild. It's crazy. It shouldn't be like this.
And you know what? They just pointed out in the chat. Jed Revenwolf just pointed out in the chat that let's put a new bar where there's a tripping hazard. Good job, Bob.
Exactly.
That is true. That is true. We do have that new bar right there in Spaceship Earth.
G82. Indeed. They talk about, language? What's the terminology that they use? I can't even remember anymore.
And so what we've tried to do is really bring that shape language from the architecture. But what we love to talk about at WDI is shape language. And we often refer to shape language.
There's such iconic shape language in Spaceship Earth as the attraction. We really wanted to make sure that we fused to that throughout the space.
This is unbelievably embarrassing for a park that's supposed to represent the future and supposed to represent the possibilities of that future. This is the big entrance piece, right? This is, in many cases, the first impression that you want to make for your guests. And to see it not only coming out of the ground, as you see right there, but actually roped off in several areas in order to prevent tripping, it's just an embarrassment.
Well, Vash, not only that, but you know where it sits. It's right there in Dreamer's Point.
And Dreamer's Point is the antithesis of the idea that Walt had this incredible optimism and hope for the future, that if we all work together and we all dream together, we could build the impossible and make it our reality.
That poor girl. Every time I see that clip, I just think it couldn't be as bad. No, it's poetic. It's not ironic. It's poetic.
It is poetic. It is poetic. Culture, a year and a half this has existed, and the mortar is already starting to deteriorate and cause these things to pop up like this. I mean, this is not, it didn't even take a year and a half. We've been seeing this now for about a year. This was happening right away.
I'd like to ask a question. You guys are pretty smart, and so is our audience, of course. What was wrong with the fiber optic little stars that would shimmer in the sidewalk and stuff? What was wrong with that?
They weren't magical enough.
Okay.
I believe one of the Imagineers behind GeoEdit2 actually talks about that and how it's like, hey, remember those fiber optic effects that used to exist in the sidewalk? We reference it in this new bar there. And it's like,
You mentioned on your walk down the hallway in, if you look underneath your feet, you can see that the floor tile actually sparkles beneath your feet. And that too is a love story to the hardscape that used to be outside of this venue that had those fiber optics embedded within it. So again, it's a love letter to Epcot.
you should have referenced it outside. It's just not worked at all. Go ahead.
Well, no, I mean, you could have used something like EM wire, which is resilient to weather. You could have, of course, used side-lit fiber optics to recreate this, and not these individual LEDs. And again, I think a lot of it may have to do with the fact that in order to access this for maintenance, they have to tear up these plastic sheet things that they installed and had to mortar against. Look, the fiber optics were going to be forever because really they were just pathways, and you could use bigger fiber optics to make a network of these things, and instead have been little dots, circles that come up around, in the design that you wanted. So to me, this is just poor planning, because they didn't look ahead, which is something that the latest batch of Imagineers don't do. They don't think about the future. They don't wonder what the durability is going to be like. I mean, there was a whole area at Epcot where they used to use samples of paint to make sure they'd be resilient against the weather. Those things were up for years. I'm sure many of you have seen them before. And the idea, and they don't know what the plant life is going to be like, because they've not tested that either. They've got issues with all kinds of plants there now. None of this was well thought out, and it definitely is the antithesis of what Walt would want, for sure.
It's not at all the vision of even those early Imagineers, especially what Walt wanted. Obviously, we know that Walt didn't want a theme park. He wanted a new experiential prototype. Yeah, a community of tomorrow. That's exactly right. And does this represent any of that? I don't even know what the vision for Epcot is anymore, outside of the food and drink park, which we've covered here so brilliantly.
No, it's just, and again, tripping hazard, bar, all those types of things. There's no forethought. And those are the things that annoy me the most, and have probably for the longest period of time.
You may be able to discover this on your own, but if you sit here at dusk, from daytime into dusk into night, the lighting changes. So we have right now our daytime look, which is white lights, and then at dusk it transitions to our golden hour light look that you see on the exteriors reflected within. So that way, if you're standing in World Celebration Gardens and you're looking up at this venue, it will all blend together seamlessly.
Look at that. It's incomplete. It doesn't connect, right? Mm-hmm. And that seam is poor. They obviously didn't do materials studies here. Mm-hmm. All of that should have been bordered by brass or some kind of metal that was rust resistant, so that they could just slide those things into position.
Right.
There's 1,000 different reasons why this is always a bad idea.
Right. When it comes down to it, if you were going to hire any company to put in floor lighting, ground lighting, that was going to be put underfoot and walked over by thousands of people, maybe millions of people every year, you would assume that Disney would be the company that you should consult on that. But instead, there's something that has happened within this company. It's a different Imagineering than it used to be, or they're hiring everything out to the point where there's not enough oversight on it. So in the end, I think it's a different Disney than the one we all grew up with. And I'm not talking about. And I'm not talking about from a political, cultural standpoint, although there is some of that. I think that the knowledge base that was there is gone.
Yeah.
Well, you know where they are? They're at the park across town where the in-ground lighting works.
Yeah, that's right. They just have a permitting issue so they can get their fireworks going.
But this isn't even the only problem we've had in this area. The concrete in the area over by the planter, over by where the fountain used to be, was also coming up recently. and they had to rope that off as well. We covered that for that Park Place just last year, that there were tripping hazards. So this entire area is just a massive tripping hazard when it's not, smelling like sewage, and even sometimes while it is.
And I think some of the problem here is that they didn't do drainage properly, and you have undulating earth in this area. It comes down to initial or reconstruction of an area that had already been tamped down and compacted and had drainage worked out and everything else. Instead of replacing the existing infrastructure, they redeveloped it in a way that it wasn't conducive to what they were trying to do. Again, it comes down to a whole lot of factors, and we can place the blame firmly at the construction folks that work for Disney, because they were at the time essentially Disney construction. That's how they go about doing these projects. It's why they take so long. Or did take so long. It's also why they cost so terribly much.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the other reason it takes so long is because they can just drag out payments to those companies to set the CapEx off quarterly. That's the only explanation for why Tron took 7 years on an already developed attraction. Anyway,
Correct.
I'm sorry, I get upset about that stuff. So
your upsetness is understandable, Culture. Upsetness, because it's my job to write words.
I like that word. I'm going to use that in a sentence.
Anybody else have anything that they want to add about this, or are we ready to move on to our next major story after some super chats?
It's just sad that this park has deteriorated this much. Go ahead, Jonas.
No, I was just saying what Marvin always plays that clip. It stinks.
It stinks. Yeah.
The
sometimes literally.
Isn't that the problem though? Is this park is continually being Walcott, like randomly? Like they go back to constantly having to redevelop things, redesign things, and it again, that's lack of forethought. I won't ever understand, but that's that it is what it is.
You used to always think back in the day when Disney was the symbol of excellence, you'd just be like, well, how are they going to do that? Well, whatever. It's Disney. They've got it figured out. They know what they're doing. And now it's just kind of like, well, let's see. With every new construction, it's like, well, let's see what they didn't think through this time. Dan's Life at the Kingdom for $4.99 says, meanwhile, at Epic, their floor lights are working just fine. Yes, they are.
Yes, and they don't have a bronze representation of the founder that looks like an evil demon with poor lighting.
It gets really hot in the summertime, so if somebody tries to put their arm around it, they can get scorched. But it's okay because nobody's ever over there.
I'm still upset by the demon lighting. I'm not thrilled.
Yeah, no, not great, not great.
Thanks for watching That Park Plays News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.